day, listeners. What happens when the promises of a system meant to reward service finally starts to feel real? When the decades of unfair treatment begin to be dismantled? Well, today, I want to talk about a monumental step forward, the Social Security Fairness Act. Now, if you are or you know a teacher, firefighter, a public servant who spent years on the front lines, you may know what I'm referring to. For years, Social Security's Windfall elimination provision and government pension offset have taken what's fair and turned it into frustration, cutting benefits in ways that most Americans don't even realize. It's created loopholes that punish our hardest workers, but now that's changed, or so we think. The repeal of these measures breathes new life into what's right for retirees, especially those balancing two systems. And yes, the back pay retroactively reaching back to last January sounds great, but does it really mean justice for all? Or does this reform still carry cracks too deep to patch over? And here at the Real 411, we don't stop at the surface. We dig. We pull apart the policies, look at the tech shifts happening behind the scenes, name the wins, yes, but also evaluate the risks to our already strained Social Security Administration. I'm talking citizen trust, lost benefits, glitches, all of these puzzle pieces you won't find just from reading the headlines. So stick with me. We're unpacking what fairness really looks like when it's put into action. One step, one reform at a time. And let's get ready, because as you'll find out, this isn't just about pensions and politics. It's about the fight for integrity and justice for every retiree out there who's waited long enough. I'm Dr. Chelsea McGee, reminding you as always, the story is never just a headline. Welcome to the Real 411. Let's talk about fairness, not as a concept, but as something tangible, something long overdue for the millions of public sector workers who've spent their lives dedicated to serving others. The Social Security Fairness Act finally addresses some of the instances built into our system, specifically the repeal of the Windfall elimination provision and the government pension offset. Now, hear me out. This isn't just legislative jargon. These two laws had real-world consequences, stripping teachers, firefighters, police officers, your neighbors, your family, my family, of benefits they had rightfully earned. Before going any further, let's cover three topics. What is the Social Security Fairness Act? Why is the act controversial? And what is the result of the act? The Social Security Fairness Act is a bipartisan bill aimed at repealing two controversial provisions in the U.S. Social Security law, the Windfall elimination provision and government pension offset. These provisions reduce or eliminate Social Security benefits for certain public sector employees, including teachers, firefighters, police officers, and other state and local government workers who also receive a government pension from work not covered by Social Security. Government pension offset can eliminate spousal or survival benefits, reducing them by 2/3 of the pension amount, sometimes leaving widows with nothing. Critics argue these provisions are unfair, especially to lower-income public workers who held multiple jobs. The critics argue that it is poorly understood, often only discovered at retirement, and disproportionately harmful to women and minorities in public service. Supporters of the repeal say it's about restoring fairness and acknowledging the dual contributions made by many public servants. The act repeals the Windfall elimination provision and government pension offset entirely. It restores full Social Security benefits to millions of affected retirees and potentially increases monthly benefits. It provides retroactive compensation. The act is estimated to impact over 2 million retirees, especially in states like California, Texas, Louisiana, and Massachusetts, where non-covered public pensions are common. Take a moment to imagine this. My Aunt Susan was a nurse for over 30 years, splitting her career between private clinics and a hospital funded through state pensions. After she retired, she found out her Social Security benefits were cut drastically because of those laws. She told me once, "Chelsea, I worked 2 lifetimes. How can I be penalized for doing what was right? For taking care of people? That anger and exhaustion, that wasn't just her story. It was shared by millions across the country. Until now. Under the Fairness Act, retirees like Aunt Susan are finally seeing justice, with retroactive payments starting from January of 2024. Many will receive lump sums compensating for what was unfairly withheld. For some, that's just a few $100s. For others, we're talking thousands. John Kerry, former senator and a longtime advocate for repealing these provisions, said, "This victory for retirees in Massachusetts and across the country is a long time in coming, and it wouldn't have ever had a chance without the patience and persistence of mass retirees, which never gave up and never gave in, and has helped to do something for working people that finally achieves fairness and justice for people who worked a lifetime and were effectively being punished for choosing careers in public service as teachers or firefighters or postal workers. This is about fundamental fairness. It rights a wrong that was 40 years in the making. 40 years, listeners. That's how long they waited to see justice, if you can even call that waiting just. Of course, the numbers show promise. According to advocacy groups and federal officials, as of this March, nearly $15 billion has already been paid out. And the changes extend beyond just lump sums. Monthly Social Security checks are also being recalculated, often meaning a significant bump for retirees moving forward. One retired firefighter I read about, Bob, I believe his name was, shared that his family's entire financial outlook shifted overnight. His benefits, once slashed by the Windfall elimination provision and government pension offset, suddenly jumped by over $600 a month. Imagine the relief, the dignity that brings back to someone who spent his life protecting others. But listeners, and here's where I ask for your critical ear, we can't paint this reform as a flawless victory. While the retroactive payments sound promising, not every retiree affected by the government pension offset gets their benefits back automatically. If they were verbally denied in the past with no formal records, their cases are being treated as if they're new applicants. That means they only receive retroactive benefits reaching 6 months back. Is that fairness? I don't think so. It tells those overlooked communities, sorry, but your word isn't enough, even when their years of service prove otherwise. And let's not ignore the logistical hurdles here. The Social Security Administration, already under strain, is scrambling to handle recalculations for over 3 million retirees. Their ancient computer systems, I mean, seriously, these machines have been running since the Johnson administration. So it's no surprise that implementation has been anything but smooth, with some cases still pending manual review. So that's where we stand. Progress, yes, but also a reminder of how far we have left to go. Through these stories of retirees like Aunt Susan and Bob the firefighter, we see glimpses of hope. But hope isn't enough. It's just a starting point. Now, how this reform shakes out long term will depend on whether fairness can truly hold its ground against systemic inefficiencies. We'll need strong oversight, transparency, attentiveness to those falling through the cracks. Because for every retiree finally seeing fairness, there's someone waiting to know if their turn will ever come. So, let's shift focus. When we talk about reform, we often picture sweeping changes, fairness restored, and problems neatly solved. Beneath that optimistic vision, though, stands a bureaucracy trying to hold itself together while implementing changes. And the Social Security Administration is a perfect case study for this balancing act. Here's some context. The Social Security Administration, the backbone of retirement and disability benefits for millions, has had a tough couple of years. Just as retirees get good news from the Fairness Act, we also learn the agency is struggling, scrambling even, to manage these updates with systems that, and I'm not exaggerating, were designed back in the 1960s. These aren't your sleek, modern platforms. They are fragile systems requiring manual interventions for countless cases. Adding to that is the leadership shuffle. Leland Dubak, overseeing modernization attempts, made headlines for his results over rhetoric mantra, but stepped down earlier this year. Frank Bizignano has since been appointed, bringing promises to turn the Social Security Administration into a premier organization. Bold words, but can such promises materialize amid shortages in staff, reduced office numbers, and delayed services? The reality is far from straightforward. Service delays, website outages, error-prone recalculations, they're life-disrupting. Reports are surfacing of people unable to access local offices just to fix paperwork. And as services shift online, older, less tech-savvy populations are being forced to navigate systems they find alienating. It's like solving one injustice while unknowingly creating new barriers elsewhere. Yet, it isn't all doom and gloom. Let's rewind to the 1983 Social Security amendments for just a moment. Back then, the system was facing its own fiscal crisis. Financial stability was at stake. Those reforms, which included gradually raising the retirement age and expanding payroll taxes, are what saved the system, enabling it to support millions for decades to come. Fast forward to today, and we're witnessing a similar crossroad. There's an opportunity here to do more than plug holes. This is the time to ask, can we reimagine what the Social Security Administration should function like in this century? Can we prioritize not just stability, but accessibility and equity? Let me leave you with this thought for now. Each reform brings with it a wave of optimism, but if the bureaucracy behind it can't meet the moment, if modernization becomes a buzzword instead of a reality, we risk slipping back into the chaos of band-aid solutions. And with all due respect, hasn't history already warned us what happens when we prioritize maintenance over vision? Here we are in the year 2025, and after decades of debates and delays, Social Security is witnessing a wave of change. But what does that mean for you? Or perhaps for someone in your life who depends on these benefits? Let's break it down piece by piece, starting with this year's updates. First, we have a modest cost of living adjustment of 2.5%. I say modest because compared to last year's 8.7% hike, this seems like a drop in the bucket. For retirees, that means the average monthly benefit nudges up from $1,927 to $1,967. And sure, every dollar helps, but with inflation still nipping at our heels, I have to ask, is this enough? For couples, the math changes slightly. Their average went from $3,014 to $3,089 per month. Again, a step forward, but not exactly a leap. Then there's this tweak to maximum taxable earnings. The ceiling has moved up from $168,000 to $167,000. For high-wage earners, it means they'll contribute more into the system, but in return, those retiring this year at full age can see up to $4,018 monthly compared to $3,822 last year. Disabled workers or widows will see slight upticks in their checks as well. Yet, when I read stories of retirees grappling with spiraling healthcare costs or stretched grocery budgets, these increases feel insufficient to the real challenges at hand. And here's one of our tech enthusiasts. Digital Social Security cards are set to launch this summer. If you've ever misplaced your paper card at the worst possible moment, this may sound like salvation. You'll be able to pull up your number on a secure website or even display it from your phone. But let's not sugarcoat this upgrade. For the 42% of older adults without reliable broadband access, what good is a feature they can't even use? Again, progress, but who does it truly serve when accessibility doesn't keep pace? But this chapter of updates isn't just about accepting these changes at face value. It's about how retirees can adapt and thrive. One strategy already making the rounds claims retirees could boost their annual Social Security income by up to $22,924 just by maximizing the timing of their claims. The theory? It's all about deferring benefits until that sweet spot in your retirement age brackets. Sounds promising, right? But here's my caution. Not everyone has the luxury of waiting to cash in. Life, after all, doesn't pause for optimal financial strategies, especially not when bills are due or health declines. So I'm left pondering this broader question. How do we balance the drive for modernization with the need for accessibility? For every shiny new feature or incremental benefit increase, there's a contingent of retirees who find themselves further sidelined by a system that struggles to meet their needs. And that's the challenge our government faces every step of the way. Will the reforms of today help the majority or leave behind those genuinely struggling to navigate the ever-changing landscape of Social Security? So, what does fairness actually look like? Is it a backdated check that comes decades late? A sleeker website with fewer humans behind it? Or is it something deeper? A system that finally delivers on its promise to the people who carried their country on their backs. The Social Security Fairness Act may be a victory, but it's not the finish line. It's a warning shot, because if we don't stay loud, informed, and organized, the next chapter won't be progress. It will be rollback. These wins don't happen by accident. They happen when everyday people fight against all odds and refuse to give up. So here's what I want you to do. Share this episode with someone who's been shortchanged. A retired teacher, a nurse, a public worker who got half the check they deserved. Email your representatives and ask them point blank, where do you stand on fairness? And don't stop talking. Not in your churches, your union meetings, your group chats, or your family dinners, because silence doesn't change the system. Pressure does. Next week on The Real 411, we're diving into more injustice and why it should send a chill down your spine. Until then, I'm Dr. Chelsea McGee. Stay informed, stay relentless, and remember, the story is never just a headline.